This is a DeWalt battery-powered Game Boy Advance. Is your Game Boy Advance always running out of battery and you never have any AA batteries? Or the rechargeable one isn't working anymore? Introducing the new DeWalt battery adapter for your GBA. Not actually affiliated or real product to DeWalt. Video for entertainment purposes only. Lately, I've been going down a rabbit hole of DeWalt battery accessories, like this inverter with a flashlight. Now what does this have to do with the Game Boy? Well, my GBA's battery wasn't holding a charge anymore, and I was going to order a new one in the near future, when my wife, who had heard me talking about some DeWalt battery accessories we don't need, suggested I should just power the GBA with it. She's a genius. And voila, that's how we got here. Now the real OGs of the channel remember when I made a wireless charger with a built-in solar panel for the GBA. So I figured, time for another wacky invention for my GBA. First things first, the items needed for the adapter. You're going to need the DeWalt battery, of course, which I chose because I already had some drills with these batteries for years, just stored away and only used them when I needed to drill something. I have older batteries, according to my current research. The new ones will have the amp hour size on the label. This one happens to be a 4 amp hour battery and a 3 amp hour battery. But they have up to 15 amp hour batteries, but they're also very expensive. But I made this work with the 20 volt batteries, so any other 20 volt battery brand will work. I just went with this one because, again, it's just what I had. I'm not like a DeWalt or nothing guy. Anyways, battery check. Now something to be able to output the power. In my rabbit hole adventures, I saw that many people use these batteries for many different applications, such as using them to power those Power Wheel cars, and I bought this adapter that basically has wire leads from the battery. I also have this adapter that has a USB-A and a USB-C port, and the USB-C port can also charge the batteries as well as output power. So there's a few options there. The batteries are 20 volts, and I have the Genius Game Mods battery motherboard for the GBA, which needs a 3.7 volt input. So I bought a DC to DC step-down module here. That's basically going to lower the voltage from the battery to be able to power the GBA. Here's where I ran into a problem with the adapter that has the wire leads coming out of it. I bought one that just straight has positive and negative wires and nothing else. They do have some with switches, and even some with 12 volt converter ones. But I got this one because it was the smallest footprint. First issue is, the wires are way too thick for the step-down converter I have here. At least the one I have. I was able to screw them in, but they were a little bit loose and because they were so thick. So either I needed some thinner wires in between the connections, or get another step-down converter with bigger wire inputs. So instead, I used my other adapter I mentioned with the USBs, because I can just use the USB to wire leads, and it'll output at 5 volts since it's a USB-A port. It also has a battery level indicator, so that's a plus. The only con? It's bulky when comparing it to the adapter with only the wire leads. Okay, overall, I used the DeWalt batteries, a step-down converter, and a GBA rechargeable motherboard mod. I used the USB cable with wire leads from the DeWalt battery adapter to the input side of the step-down module. Then I used some wires to output to the GBA battery motherboard. The step-down converter had to be turned down by turning the knob here until I got it to my desired voltage. I tried it at 5 volts, but it seemed too much power for the GBA. I chose 3.7 because that's how much the rechargeable batteries are for the GBA battery mods, like the one I have. I also soldered the wire leads on the motherboard instead of using the connector here. So once everything is connected, you can see that the GBA turns on and is being powered by the DeWalt battery. Now I just had to create something to hold it all together. So I got a few measurements, the little CAD, printed up a prototype. This first one was a bit janky. I basically made it into 2 pieces, one to hold the GBA and one to hold everything else. I was just going to put these 2 pieces together and call it a day, but I decided to go back to the drawing board and design something more ergonomic. Sort of. I tried to mimic the Nintendo 64 controller a bit, and this is what I came up with. I ran the wires to the back here, and the step-down converter goes in here. The battery adapter slides into here. I left a little window so you can see the battery level, and the GBA battery motherboard just kind of sticks out here. So now you just gotta plug in the board into the GBA's battery slot, then slide the GBA into place, and then slide the DeWalt battery, and then turn it on. Heavy? Yes. But now I'm playing with true Nintendo power. Or in this case, DeWalt power, which is not affiliated in any way, shape, or form and not a real product by DeWalt, and I made this purely for entertainment purposes. My lawyer said to mention this in the video. Right, lawyer? How long does this battery last, you may ask? Well, my 4 amp hour battery here, on paper, the DeWalt battery is a 20 volt 4 amp hour, so 80 watt hours. confirmed on the back here. So 80 watt hours divided by the 0.8 watts the Game Boy Advance consumes would give me 100 hours? No, that doesn't sound right. I used the power meter device to get the wattage from the GBA, and it also stated that it was using 0.16 amps. So 4000 milliamps divided by 160 milliamps, the battery should last about 25 hours. Now in the actual testing, the battery gave me something completely different. So somebody help me down in the comments. I set the GBA up with the battery around 8 p.m. on a Friday, and at first it went down from 90% to 80 in about 25 minutes, but then it really slowed down to almost nothing. 24 hours later, it was down to 44%, and finally, almost 48 hours later, it got to 0% and the GBA died. So it lasted almost 48 hours from 90 to 0. My batteries are old, so I don't think they actually hold the 100% capacity anymore. More likely around 80% perhaps. Still, a super long time considering I left the GBA on pretty much all weekend in the background. The rechargeable battery mod was 1800 milliamps, and I would get about 4 to 5 hours of gameplay. And if you had the bigger batteries, you would have a Guinness World Record for longest lasting battery for a GBA. And since I have 2 of them, I can just swap them out when one of them is low on battery. And since I use the adapter with USB-C, I can always charge the battery too. Which brings me to the one caveat of using this adapter versus the one with wire leads. Sometimes when I plug in the battery, it doesn't automatically wake the step-down converter up. I have to unplug and plug the USB to wake it up, I guess. So that's why I left a little window here to access the USB instead of taking everything apart and reassembling it. I also printed some covers in TPU to cover the windows up so it looks a little nicer. And then I painted the holder here in yellow to further match the DeWalt color scheme. So now, the final product. Not actually a real DeWalt product or affiliated by the company. My Game Boy Advance will always have some juice because the batteries cannot hold a charge for a long time. Also because I have 2 of them as I mentioned before. And of course I know it's bulky and not feasible, but something different and interesting. And also I can play the GBA like this in future videos and throw people off who haven't seen this one and just act like it's an everyday thing. Yeah, maybe I won't take this in public. The main point is, I don't have to order another one of these anymore. Well, I guess it's time to put everything away. I have to get to work now. Don't worry, boss, I'm gonna mount these cabinets in no time. Let me just grab my power tools. What the? Wait a minute. If this is here, then... Ah, dang it. Not again.
Hey, what did I tell you about bringing your Game Boy to work?